Okay, don't freak out. You've just woken up in the 14th century. There's a rat chewing on your boot, the ceiling's leaking something suspicious, and your phone has 0% battery. You are officially very, very offline. Welcome to the Middle Ages. This is not a dream. This is not a prank. And no, there's no portal in the pantry. But hey, you're not alone. You've got me. Your sleep-deprived, unqualified, deeply sympathetic narrator. So grab your imaginary blanket, maybe light an actual candle, and try not to step on the "is that hay or something worse?" You're about to spend a full day stuck in medieval Europe. And trust me, you're going to learn more than you ever wanted about chamber pot soup rules and what happens when you sneeze in church, so lie down and let's start. Okay. Deep breaths. You wake up on a straw mattress and your back already hates you. The room smells like mold, old cabbage, and medieval regret. There's no alarm clock, no notifications, no gentle morning playlist from Spotify to ease you in. Just the unholy ree of a rooster screaming directly into your soul. You sit up and instantly regret it. Your head hits a rafter. Your legs are tangled in what you hope is a blanket and not a sack of oats. You're wearing wool, scratchy beige wool, possibly burlap, definitely cursed. The windows are just holes in the wall, there's no glass, just waxed linen stretched like a medieval contact lens. It's foggy. You're foggy. Everything is foggy. Okay, you think. You're camping. A Renaissance-themed escape room, maybe. But then you hear it. The unmistakable sound of someone throwing a bucket of something unpleasant out a window. It hits the ground with a splat. You're not going to investigate. Congratulations, you're not camping. You step outside, barefoot. Because apparently shoes are for people with money or dignity. The village is waking up. There's smoke rising from chimneys, cows looking judgmental, children chasing a wheel with a stick, because apparently entertainment was invented in reverse. Someone shouts something at you in Middle English? You think it was a greeting. It may have also been an insult. You wave awkwardly like a lost exchange student. This is the moment where your brain finally admits it. You're stuck. This isn't a dream. There's no time machine coming back for you, at least not before lunch. You, a person with 3 unread emails and a mild oat milk dependency, are now living in the year 1352. And it's about to rain. Of course it is. You stumble your way to what passes for a wash basin. A barrel filled with grey water, algae, and something suspiciously floaty. Do you wash your face? You do. It burns. You spot a polished piece of metal on a wooden table. Your reflection stares back at you like a confused potato. Hair? Disaster. Eyes? Wild. You whisper to yourself, okay, adapt, survive. Try not to die of something ironic. And the day begins. You explore the room again. Just a ceramic pot in the corner, half full. You back away like it's radioactive. Honestly, close enough. You find what appears to be breakfast. A wooden bowl of porridge that's so thick it might be sentient. It jiggles. You stare. It stares back. But you're hungry, and your options are limited. You take a bite. It tastes like sadness and barley. Fun fact, the average medieval peasant consumed about 3,500 calories a day. Not because they were bulking, because they had to work 12 hours and the food was terrible. Also, medieval bread, dense enough to qualify as a minor weapon. You hear bells in the distance. You flinch, because the last time bells rang, you were in a spin class. This time, no one's handing you a towel. It's time to leave the house, maybe find answers, maybe find a way back, or, at minimum, socks. And so you begin your first full day trapped in the past, hungry, lost, underprepared, but still weirdly curious. After all, how bad can it really be? You've survived your first waking hour in the 14th century. Congratulations. That's more than most tourists can say. Now, it's time for breakfast, or as they call it here, breaking your fast with whatever hasn't rotted yet. You follow the smell of something smoky, maybe hopeful. You step outside and follow a trail of soot and shouting toward a larger hut that smells aggressively like fire and boiled onions. It's the communal cookhouse. Imagine an open-concept nightmare with 10 villagers huddled around a central fire, all arguing about turnips in a language that predates sarcasm. A woman hands you a bowl. You don't ask what's in it, you just stare. Inside, 2 chunks of bread, not toasted, not buttered, boiled. They're floating in hot water like someone dared to ruin soup and succeeded. You poke it with a stick, your spoon is missing, you lost it to a goat on the way over. It jiggles in defiance. This, dear viewer, is bread soup, also known as panade. Made from old bread, water, and the faint memory of seasoning. If you're lucky, they'll throw in a scrap of onion or a wilted leaf for colour. You sit on a wooden bench between 2 very sweaty men. They nod at you, chewing with intensity that says, "Yes, this is food. We're alive. We must remain that way." You attempt to bite. It's damp. The bread dissolves into what can only be described as medieval oatmeal made of sadness. You smile politely. You chew like your jaw is offended. You swallow, barely, and immediately wonder if food poisoning existed before refrigeration. It did. Extensively. Across the room, someone belches so hard it echoes. No one reacts. You suppress a single tear. In medieval Europe, breakfast was usually reserved for children, the elderly, or people doing hard labour, which is pretty much everyone. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't exciting, it was fuel. In the same way coal is fuel, dry, gritty, and likely carcinogenic. You try to blend in, smile when others smile, grunt when they grunt, nod when someone makes eye contact, which unfortunately a lot of people do, because you stand out. Your haircut is suspiciously even. Your posture screams, "Not dying of rickets." And you have teeth, most of them. A man with a thick beard and suspiciously pointy elbows leans in and mutters something. You nod. He repeats it, slower this time with more eyebrow. You nod again, this time making a grunt. He smiles. You just agreed to something. Maybe he thinks you're courting his daughter. Maybe you're joining a guild. Maybe you've accidentally enlisted in a war. Either way, it's fine. You'll deal with it later. You finish your meal and thank the cook, a wiry woman who eyes your shoes like they're gold bars. You make a mental note to hide them tonight. Outside, the morning sun has risen higher. The village is stirring with activity. Children are herding geese. Women are stomping laundry. A man is yelling at a pig who frankly looks unimpressed, and your stomach is making sounds. Concerning ones. You've now eaten your first full medieval meal. You have consumed bread boiled in broth, mystery greens, and one lukewarm ale because water isn't always safe, and you're not ready to relive dysentery. Your body is confused. Your taste buds are grieving, and your intestines are bracing for impact. You walk away from the cookhouse trying to look casual, but your face says, "Is this indigestion or spiritual awakening?" You've made it 2 hours, only 10 more to go. You start walking toward the square. The villagers are out. You still have no idea what to do. No plan, no portal, no futuristic tools, just vibes, and possibly diarrhea. Haha. Welcome to breakfast in the Middle Ages, where the food is questionable, the ale is warm, and the bathrooms are terrifying. So now that you've eaten, and by eaten I mean barely survived a bowl of boiled bread broth, it's time to explore the village. Not to find help, not to find shelter. No. It's because the local mailman just delivered you a piece of plague mail. Yes, you have mail in the 14th century. And it's probably very contagious. It arrives in the most medieval way possible. A young boy with a crooked hat riding a donkey with an attitude tosses a wax-sealed scroll at your chest with the force of a medieval dodgeball. You catch it, immediately regret catching it, because it's greasy. You hold it like a biohazard, which to be fair is exactly what it might be. The parchment smells like dried blood and disappointment. The seal is broken. The edges are chewed. You unroll it slowly. It's written in a hasty, spidery Latin that screams local monk with bad handwriting. You stare at it. The only words you can make out are fever, God's will, and containment. A man walks by, sees you reading it, and immediately crosses himself. Another woman spits over her shoulder. A third person throws cabbage at you. Cabbage. You've just been publicly identified as someone who may have had contact with the sick person, or worse, maybe sick yourself. Which you're not, probably. You cough once and 5 chickens scatter like you're the Antichrist. You decide not to read the rest. You fold it, carefully tuck it into your ragged coat, which you stole from a drying line earlier, don't lie, and walk away slowly. You're being followed now, subtly. Side glances, people closing windows. One man makes the sign of the cross using a carrot. You have no idea how this works, but apparently now you're cursed. You duck into a side alley between 2 thatched buildings. It smells like cheese and fear. You peek at the letter again. You try to decipher it with the help of your 9th grade Latin and 12 episodes of the Borgias. It might be a warning. It might be a death sentence. It might be someone inviting you to a very cursed dinner. You have no way of knowing. The thing about the Middle Ages is, everything could kill you. Your shoes, your neighbours, a damp breeze, especially a letter. Literacy, by the way, is rare here. Only monks, merchants, and the incredibly bored know how to read. So the fact that you're holding a message alone makes you suspicious. Your entire modern brain is screaming, "Just explain! Just tell them you're from the future!" You don't. 'Cause you remember what happened to the last guy they thought was weird. He's now considered a holy relic. Spoiler, he's also dead. You step out cautiously. A dog growls at you. A child throws a rock that misses by 6 inches. You duck behind a pig cart. You now officially know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of nextdoor.com in 13 for 52. You need a plan. Here's your current situation. You're in possession of a plague letter. You're a stranger with no known family. You're literate. And you're clean. That last one's suspicious on its own. So what do? You walk to the edge of the village, not to escape, not yet, but to watch. observe, understand what passes for normal here, and how far outside of it you currently are. You sit on a rock. A friendly goat wanders up. You name him Clive. He eats your sleeve. You don't stop him. The bell tolls again. This time a different tone. Slow. Heavy. You ask someone nearby what it means. They point to the church steeple. Death, they say, plainly. You realize the letter may not be for you. It may be about you, or someone you touched, or someone who saw you, talked to you, even stood near you. You are, in essence, contaminated by association. Narrator, calm. In 1352, the Black Death was still ravaging Europe. It killed millions. Whole towns vanished. And suspicion was a survival skill. This wasn't just fear. This was habit. See something strange? Blame it. Burn it. Throw a rock and move on. So now you sit reading a letter you can't understand in a time you don't belong to, next to a goat chewing your arm. And the worst part? You still don't know where the bathroom is. Don't panic. Well, panic a little. But also, breathe. You've made it 3 hours into medieval life, and aside from a possible plague accusation, a cabbage to the face, and goat-related textile loss, you're doing okay. You fold the letter again. You're going to figure this out eventually. Maybe? We need to talk about it. You knew this moment was coming. You've eaten medieval breakfast. You've had medieval ale. Your stomach has begun to issue warnings. And now, it's time. Time to answer the most horrifying question in historical travel. Where do you go to go? You ask a local. They blink at you. You mime the universal sign for bathroom. Nothing. You try again, this time with more squatting. Maybe a little urgency in your tone. They laugh. You're not reassured. Eventually someone points toward the back of the village, near the edge of the pig fields. You thank them. They give you a look like, "Good luck, strange clean person." You start walking, slowly, regretfully. Every step is heavy with dread. You arrive at what can only be described as a wooden box. It leans to one side. The wood is warped. There's no door, just a curtain made of rough-stained fabric flapping in the breeze like a warning flag. And the smell hits you. Oh no. Welcome to the medieval outhouse, sometimes called a privy, sometimes just called behind the barn, sometimes it's a pit, sometimes it's a bucket, sometimes it's your shoes if you weren't fast enough. You peek inside. There's a wooden seat, if you can call a jagged hole in a plank a seat. Underneath, darkness, a pit, a void. Possibly the final boss of this entire era. There are no instructions, no toilet paper, no dignity, just a stick, with a sponge. On the end, yes, that's your wipe. You hesitate, you pray. You consider holding it until the Enlightenment. But nature waits for no man. You enter the outhouse, trying not to breathe. You crouch. Everything creaks. A fly lands on your neck. You slap yourself mid-mission. You have never missed your bidet more than you do in this moment. You reach for the sponge stick. Your eyes water with betrayal. It's damp. Of course it is. You consider simply standing up and running into the woods to live there forever. But you are strong. You are modern. You have survived worse. Actually, no, you haven't. Fun historical fact. Public latrines in larger towns were sometimes communal, with no dividers, just a line of holes, like musical chairs, but somehow worse. Sponge sticks were shared and rarely washed. Toilet paper? Didn't exist. Leaves, rags, moss, or your hand. May the odds ever be in your intestinal favour. You emerge 20 minutes later, humbled, haunted, and questioning the nature of civilization. Your hair is slightly windblown. Your soul is less intact. Someone walks by, gives you a nod. You nod back. They know. You've joined a club now, a terrible, stinky club. You find a water trough and splash your face. You don't care if it's meant for horses. You whisper, "Never again." A passing monk hears you, crosses himself and walks away faster. Congratulations. You've just experienced one of the most universal and most horrifying aspects of daily medieval life, and you made it out alive. Sort of. You find a rock to sit on. You stare into the distance. You think about plumbing. You think about hand sanitizer. You think about your poor betrayed digestive system. A chicken waddles by. You salute it. It doesn't salute back, but it respects you, because it too has seen things. You've made it 4 hours into your day. You've endured questionable porridge, social exile, and now the trials of the outhouse. And somehow you're still standing. Well, squatting, but we'll count it. Take a breath, wipe away a tear, drink some plague-free ale if you can find it. You're one step closer to surviving medieval life, though let's be honest. The real question now is, where do you wash your hands? Answer, you don't. No one does. You've washed your face in horse water. You've survived the outhouse apocalypse. You're slowly losing your grip on what day it is, what year it is, and whether your spleen is still emotionally intact. Now it's time for a new medieval experience. Being accused of witchcraft. Again, it starts innocently enough. You're walking through the village trying to find someone who doesn't immediately pelt you with onions. You pass by the market square. There's a crowd. They're gathered around a woman shouting at a goose. The goose is winning. You, in your infinite 21st century wisdom, laugh out loud. Mistake. Because in 1352, people don't laugh alone. They laugh in groups. They laugh nervously. They do not laugh at mystical goose confrontations in the square. Heads turn. A man gasps. A child whispers. An old woman clutches her beads like you just cursed her ox. You try to walk away, but then you accidentally drop the plague letter from earlier. It flutters to the ground. Someone picks it up. They can read, and they begin to read it. Out loud, in Latin. You're doomed. A murmur spreads through the crowd like an infection. Witch. Hexbringer. Too clean. Speaks devil tongue. Someone points at your hoodie, the only part of your modern wardrobe still intact. What is that? You stammer. They call it a witch cloak. You say polyester. They hear sorcery. You are now the most suspicious person in a 10-mile radius. In the Middle Ages, if you were literate, weirdly dressed, and didn't die immediately from the common cold, you were either a noble or a threat to society. You, friend, are not a noble. You are, in their eyes, a problem. The priest is summoned. A short man with no chin and a voice like an angry kettle. He approaches slowly, clutching a wooden cross and muttering prayers under his breath like he's preparing for a boss battle. You try to explain. You use simple English. He does not speak simple English. You point at your shoes. He points at the sky. You sneeze. Half the crowd gasps. Someone throws a clove of garlic at you. Another woman throws a fish. It's unclear whether this is part of the ritual or just personal. You raise your hands. Big mistake. They see your smartwatch. It's dead, sure, but the shiny black screen looks like obsidian or some kind of witch glass. They gasp. One man faints dramatically. Congratulations. You are now officially under suspicion of being a sorcerer from the north, or possibly a lost saint, or the Antichrist. It really depends on which villager you ask and how many teeth they have left. You are taken, gently but firmly, to the edge of the village. They tie your hands with what feels like sheep yarn. They place you on a wooden cart. You're not sure if you're being arrested, exiled, or adopted. They argue over whether to burn you now or ask the bishop first. You suggest a third option. They ignore you. Small child walks up and pokes your smartwatch. It lights up for half a second, a ghost of battery life, a flicker of your old world. They scream. The priest screams. The goose screams. Why? Someone yells, "It glows!" You are now being accused of housing a demon inside your wrist. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last. Because in this world, anything unfamiliar is dangerous. Mystery equals menace. Tech equals heresy. You sit on the cart. You sigh. You whisper, "Why didn't I major in mechanical engineering?" And as the villagers argue about where to store you until tomorrow, you begin plotting your escape. You need a distraction, a plan, and maybe another porridge bowl to hurl at someone, because this isn't over. You've made it almost halfway through the day. You've endured poverty, confusion, bowel betrayal, and now a light dabbling in heresy, and still you survive. Your modern brain, fragile as it is adapting, and if you can make it past this mob, you might just see dinner time, whatever that means. It's midday in the Middle Ages, and you've survived witch accusations, goat diplomacy, and the worst bathroom break in human history. You deserve a break. But the universe says, how about a bucket of mud to the shins instead? Because welcome to medieval noon, where everything is loud, dirty, chaotic, and weirdly enthusiastic. You're still technically under house arrest, or cart arrest, depending on how you define being loosely tied to a wooden board next to a hay pile. But the village has the attention span of a cat with commitment issues, so when someone yells "ale delivery," the mob instantly disperses, leaving you gloriously unattended. You slip off the cart. The rope was symbolic anyway. Freedom never smelled so much like sheep sweat and raw onions. You wander into the heart of the village where it's market day, and by market we mean 5 tables, 3 barrels, and a goat standing on a wheel of cheese. But there's energy in the air, commerce, gossip, the vague hum of someone selling rat meat under a different name. A woman thrusts a basket of eels at you. You scream internally. You hand her a single button from your coat. She accepts it. You now own 1 eel. You carry it awkwardly like a cursed USB stick. In this time, barter is king. No cash, no credit cards. Just trading weird objects and praying someone values them. Buttons? Worth gold. Salt? Worth more than gold. Actual gold? Too suspicious. Might get you stabbed. You try not to look rich. Too bad you still have decent teeth. A man offers to trade you a loaf of bread for 1 smile. You decline. He calls you a demon in a friendly tone. Suddenly, splash. A wagon rolls past you at just the right angle to baptize you in 3 types of mud, 2 of which may be partially livestock. You stand frozen. Your dignity has left the chat. A passing child laughs and says, "It's lucky, that is." You glare. He gives you a turnip. You glare less. Fun fact, in medieval villages, roads were often just paths carved by feet, carts, and hope. There were no sewers. Water flowed where it pleased. so mud wasn't just mud. It was an experience, a stew, made from dirt, rain, spilled beer, animal droppings, and broken dreams. You tried to clean yourself using a cloth offered by a local tanner. It's not clean. You now smell like warm vinegar and regret. You hand back the eel. You don't deserve the eel. A commotion erupts at the far end of the square. You edge closer. A man is shouting about the moon being stolen and blaming his neighbour's pig. The crowd takes it very seriously. There is a formal hearing. You realise this is normal. A woman next to you asks if you've seen the healer. You say no. She looks at you with sudden horror and whispers, "Then who stitched your skin so smooth?" You mumble something about coconut oil. She gasps and runs. You've terrified another citizen with your skincare routine. You're officially a walking contradiction. You, a time traveller who once ordered oat milk and sparkling water in a single breath, are now being pelted with old bread by a man who thinks you're in league with Satan. It's humbling and slightly exfoliating. You flee into an alley to gather your thoughts. There's a drunk monk napping on a barrel. You nod in solidarity. He offers you a sip of something from a rusty flask. You accept. Your throat immediately bursts into flames. You've just had your first taste of medieval mead, or possibly turpentine. You stumble out of the alley, face flushed, and run blind into a man in armour, real armour, heavy, gleaming, covered in dents that suggest he wrestled a bear and the bear lost. He glares. You apologise. He says, "Mind thy step, peasant," you whisper, "I have a master's degree." He doesn't know what that is. But he doesn't like the tone. You've made it halfway through the day. You've experienced an eel transaction, an accidental mud baptism, mild alcohol poisoning, and a social hierarchy built on shouting and sheep. Not bad for someone who still doesn't know where the sun sets. Take a breath. You're learning, slowly, painfully, but learning. And most importantly, you're still here, cursed, muddy, confused, but alive, which is honestly a better ratio than most of this village can boast. The sun is dipping low. The village, once bustling with carts, arguments, and mysterious eel transactions, is now settling down, and you, brave temporal explorer, are about to face something more terrifying than plague, goats, and being called a sorcerer. Dinner. You're invited, or more accurately dragged, to a communal meal near the baker's hut. It's less of a dinner party, and more of a potluck hosted by people who think flavour is a sign of vanity. You sit on a long bench next to a blacksmith, a toothless man with strong opinions on thunder, and a woman who keeps calling you the soft one. You take that as a compliment. You hope. A huge wooden bowl is set in front of you. Steam rises from it like a threat. You peer in. What you see is brown. Just an undefined brown. Like if meh had a temperature. Tonight's feast, pottage, the medieval stew of champions. It contains whatever was lying around the house that didn't crawl away fast enough. In this case, barley, onions, possibly turnip, a bone, and something green and stringy that you really hope is a leek. It's been bubbling in the same cauldron for days, possibly weeks, possibly since Charlemagne was a teenager. You dip your spoon in. It resists. You wrestle the ladle like a gladiator. You taste it. It's not awful. No, wait, there it is. That aftertaste. Like Moss had a midlife crisis and took up smoking, but you eat. Because you have to. Because calories are calories. because turning down food here is more offensive than public nudity, and also because the baker is watching you like a hawk made of bread. Someone asks where you're from. You say a distant land. They nod like that explains everything. The blacksmith offers you something that might be meat. You accept out of politeness. It crunches. You try not to think about it. A girl coughs near you. You flinch. The man across the table sees your reaction and chuckles. He says, "Don't worry, only 3 of her siblings died last week." You smile weakly. He nods. Healthy family, that one. You eat faster. Diseases everywhere here. Colds, pox, fevers, the sweats, and of course, the one they won't name, the one with blackened boils and rotting lungs. You know it. You studied it. You wrote an essay on it in college. But now, it's real. It's the cough behind you, the child with pale eyes, the way the villagers avoid touching one another after sundown. After dinner, a woman with kind eyes and far too few fingers offers to check your humours. You don't know what that means. You nod. Big mistake. She leads you to her hut, a cramped candle-lit room that smells like rosemary and wet socks. She places her hand on your forehead, then your wrist, then, inexplicably, your ankle. She nods gravely, says your black bile is out of balance, suggests leeches, lots of them. Ah yes, the height of medieval medicine. If you feel tired, bloodletting. If you feel hot, leeches. If you feel sad, definitely leeches. If you stub your toe, you guessed it, more leeches. You ask politely if there's an alternative. She says yes, prayer, fasting, or being whipped until the sin leaves your body. You thank her and sprint back to the bench. You sit down, winded and pale. The villagers drink weak ale from wooden mugs. You sip some. It tastes like sadness and wheat. But honestly, it's growing on you. The fire crackles, the sky darkens, bellies are full, or at least not screaming, and for a brief moment you almost feel at peace. The wind is soft. A dog sleeps at your feet. The baker hasn't tried to hex you in nearly 20 minutes. You lean back, you breathe. You've survived dinner, and only mildly risked medieval blood therapy in the process. You look up at the stars and wonder, are they different now, or do they just seem farther away? Night has fallen. The fire's glow flickers against the faces of villagers too tired to fear you now. You've been accepted, tentatively. Or maybe they've just run out of rotten vegetables to throw. Either way, it's quiet now, which is when things get weirder. A man approaches, wrapped in furs and smelling like a fermented onion. He gestures to follow him. No words, just a look that says, "I have something deeply unsettling to show you." Because that's what every time traveller wants, mysterious midnight errands. You follow against all better judgment. He leads you to a barn. Inside, a circle of people, sitting, staring, silent. One is painting symbols in ash. Another is braiding chicken feathers into a length of rope. A third is just humming at a cabbage. You have questions. They do not offer answers. You've stumbled into one of the many folk rituals that dot medieval life like mildew on a monastery wall. No one wrote these down, but they were real. Spells, blessings, curses, half religion, half theatre, and 100% confusing. They hand you a piece of charcoal and gesture toward your forehead. You hesitate. They insist. You now have a crooked rune above your left eyebrow. Congrats, you've been spiritually upgraded. Next, someone offers you a stone. It's warm, possibly cursed. You nod politely and clutch it like a talisman. There's rhythmic chanting now. You chant too. You don't know the words. You just hum Bohemian Rhapsody in Gregorian style and hope no one notices. Then it happens. And the man in furs tosses something into the fire. It explodes in blue flames. Everyone gasps. You gasp too, but mostly because that something was definitely a toad. They pass around a small wooden cup. You drink it because you're too polite to refuse. Your tongue goes numb. Your ears feel longer. You hear music, but there's no music. Oh no. You've just been dosed with herbal dream tea, a common sleep tonic of the time, brewed from plants, bark, and existential danger. And now you're dreaming, but you're still awake. Kind of. Welcome to the world of medieval hallucinations. You blink. The barn stretches. The chickens are glowing. The cabbage is whispering secrets. The rune on your forehead starts to tingle. Someone turns into your 7th grade math teacher. You run screaming in slow motion. You stumble out of the barn. You collapse under the stars. Your mind swims. The sky breathes. Your shoes start to narrate your life. You hear your own voice echo. I should have stayed in accounting. And then you're asleep. Not fully. Just enough to drift. Just enough to dream. You're back in your bed, in your time, phone in hand, streaming a boring video about medieval farming tools. You smile, and just as you begin to relax, a goat head pokes into the frame. You scream. You wake up. You open your eyes to the sight of hay, moonlight, and a sleeping dog drooling on your leg. You're still here, still stuck, still incredibly, historically exhausted, but somehow still curious. What other weird traditions await? What other strange customs will you have to pretend make sense? And will any of this, any of it, get you back to your timeline? You don't know, but one thing's for sure, you're never drinking mystery tea again. The stars above are pinpricks of ice. The fire crackles low. You're awake again, barely, still shaking off the ghost of that dream tea that tried to teach you arithmetic through cabbage. The night is deep now. Most villagers have slipped into silence, or sleep, or prayer. But not all. Some remain near the fire, nursing mugs of warm ale and memories. You join them. One old man, wrapped in a moth-eaten cloak, nods at you. His beard is long, his eyes are watery, and he is somehow both entirely drunk and deeply philosophical. You look troubled, he says. You shrug. He laughs. A wheezy creaking sound like a wooden chest opening. You smell like goats and sins. That's how you know you're alive. You're not sure if that's wisdom or a concussion talking, but you listen, because the fire is warm, because your body is tired, because finally, no one is yelling witch at you. Another woman speaks. She's missing half her teeth, but her voice is sharp as a dagger. She tells a story of the great fire, the one that burned half the village and most of her left eyebrow. She laughs like it was yesterday. Maybe it was. She asks where you're from. You say, far away. She leans in. So far. You forgot how to be afraid? You pause. Because she's right. You, a creature of modern noise, screens, routines, have spent this entire day dodging pigs, panic, and public urination zones. And now, in the firelight, you realize you haven't checked your phone in 18 hours. You haven't worried about your inbox, or your bank account, or whether your LinkedIn profile sounds impressive. You've been busy surviving, and somehow that's freeing. The old man speaks again. He talks about the stars, how they're holes in the sky where angels peek through. He says he once saw his wife in one. She's been gone 12 winters. He doesn't cry. He just sips his drink and stares upward. A younger boy, maybe 12, barefoot and covered in soot, asks if you're part of the stories. You ask what stories. He shrugs. The ones that come before change. You don't know how to respond, so you ask for another drink. They share with you. Warm mead, sour bread, laughter. It's not much, but it's more than you expected from a place that tried to leech you 3 hours ago. History, it turns out, isn't just war and kings and diseases with too many syllables. It's this, the woman with the half eyebrow, the boy who believes in stories, the drunk who talks to firelight like it owes him money. These are the footnotes. These are the lives forgotten by scrolls and textbooks, but they were real, and now, for a brief moment, they know you. One by one, your fire circle fades. Sleep takes them. Even the dog snores. You remain, awake, watching the embers drift upward, like tiny red ships trying to reach those holes in the sky. You feel small, but whole, still lost, still hungry, still out of place, but no longer alone. This chapter of your journey wasn't about dodging mobs or surviving stew. It was about listening. And now maybe you're ready for what comes next, because morning is coming, and with it, the last, most chaotic part of your day. Better rest your eyes. The rooster has a cruel sense of humour. It's almost morning. You've barely slept. Because sleep is a luxury when you're trapped in the 14th century and mildly suspected of being Satan's nephew. But you have a plan. Sort of. Okay, it's less of a plan and more of a desperate fantasy fueled by anxiety and stale mead. But it's something. You rise from your haybed. Your joints crack like an old wooden chest. You stretch. You yawn. You regret stretching. You whisper to yourself, "Today is the day I go home." No one hears you, except maybe the goat who remains deeply unimpressed. What's your grand strategy? Oh, it's elegant. Find the weird old man who talks to stars. Convince him you're a divine messenger. Hijack the local church bell. Build a rudimentary compass from bones and broken spoons. Walk into the woods and hope a time portal opens from sheer willpower. It's flawless. What could go wrong? Spoiler, everything. Step 1. You find the old man. He's asleep in the cabbage patch. You wake him gently. He throws a turnip at you. Progress. Step 2. Divine messenger pitch. You explain your origins. He nods. He says, you've got the look of someone who's seen an indoor toilet." Then he hands you a potato and says, "For strength." You are now a time-travelling prophet holding a potato. Step 3. Bell tower infiltration. You sneak into the tiny stone chapel. Inside, the sacred bell, large, iron, slightly rusty, and very guarded by a man who looks like he eats rocks. You try charm. You say, "Good sir, might I ring the bell for spiritual enlightenment?" He says, "No." You say, "What if I gave you this very old potato?" He squints. The potato changes hands. The bell is yours. You ring it. Hard. It echoes through the valley, a massive clang that wakes the goats, the dead, and 3 very confused monks. You feel powerful. You feel ridiculous. You also feel like your head's vibrating from the sheer sonic blast of medieval metal. Step 4. Compass. You gather 1 bent spoon, 1 nail, 2 chicken feathers, and hope you rub the spoon on your hair. Mutter science under your breath and point it north. It spins wildly and flies into a puddle. You abandon science. Step 5. Into the woods. You walk. Past the last thatched hut, past the well that smells like despair, past the outhouse, where someone's carved God help us in Latin on the wall. The trees close around you, branches scrape your skin, birds mock you from above, a squirrel throws something unkind, you press on. Narrator, thoughtful, you search for the portal, the sign, the shimmer, the anything. But there's nothing, just trees and birdsong and the quiet crackle of morning. You collapse on a stump, face in hands, muddy, hungry, time stranded, and then a sound, soft, familiar, not a rooster, not a monk, not a goat, a voice, your voice, from your phone, your dead phone. It's glowing, you lift it, the screen flickers, it shows a video, one you recorded long ago, a joke, a story, you laugh just once, it hurts, then it dies again, gone, but something stirs, a breeze, a crackle in the air, a ripple in the trees. You stand, you look around, nothing. Then, a light, brief, fleeting. You chase it, through thorns, through fog, through time, and then you're gone. You wake up. Warm bed, soft pillow, buzzing phone, ceiling fan. It's over. Or is it? You check your phone. A new photo, one you never took, of you in the medieval village, holding a potato, smiling. You don't know what happened, or how, or why, but you made it, and somewhere, in the space between dreams and memory, you lived through history, and now, maybe you understand it just a little better. Thank you for surviving a day in the Middle Ages. Sleep well, traveller, and may your potatoes always be magic.